Hello, everyone. Vincent mgtow here. Hope everyone is doing well today. I'm doing okay. I'm hanging in there. Thank you for asking. Today, I wanted to touch on an interesting subject that I've seen over the past few days. It's been pretty alarming. Well, actually, not even. It's a trend that's been going on in society today, specifically in the United States specifically, but I think it applies to the world in general. But specifically here is where I'm talking about of this man hating. Right, of this menaretrash. This it's been going on for a while, but now this hashtag has sprung up, right, on Twitter, and you see it everywhere. It's hashtag men are trash. Okay, and there's a few other things I want to touch on as far as this kind of societal pressure, whatever that's going on. I don't even know what this influence that's kind of taking over. As I don't know if it's because of the Me Too. I don't know what's going on. That is allowed to say things about men, incite violence against men, and prejudice and sexism against men, and it's just okay to do so. And so I want to discuss that. I'm not trying to point fingers here at the source or whatever, but I think it's things that we should address. It's not things that we should become desensitized to. It's not things that we should just let happen and not question. Why would you say that? Would the same thing be said against women be okay? No, it's not. So don't say it with men. One of the things that you see a lot, and I'll bring that up over here. Here's a couple of the tweets. Check this one out. For this one is the first one. This one is, what people need to understand is that the menaretrash hashtag is directed towards toxic masculinity. If you're a nice, good man who's kind to women, it's not towards you. It's towards men who have abused, killed their parents, whatever countless of times mean. You can only kill your parents once. Fortunately, we have not all heroes where some guy steps up to the plate and says, I hate minorities. When I say minorities, I don't mean actual minorities. I mean minorities who kill and rob people. You see what we're doing here, okay? It's just not okay, okay? The hashtag is not okay. It doesn't stop here. Like, there's a lot of this hashtag. If you go on Twitter, you'll see it. It's going. But this is a sentiment of something much larger. Here's another tweet that says the same thing. Like, people are getting upset at the hashtag. And the answer is, if you're upset at the menaretrash, maybe you need to look into why it's trending on Twitter and see if it applies to you. What kind of weird stuff? I'm not even going to bore you with the replies to this, but it's just nonsense. It's nonsense. Women are trash. Oh, you're upset? Well, if you're upset, maybe you should take a look at why it upsets you. Just doesn't make sense. Here there's this other pretty alarming picture I wanted to share with you guys. This one is by this guy, Joe Bernstein. I don't know who he is. This is like a verified profile, whatever. But it says, kill a straight white man on your way to work tomorrow. How is this even allowed on Twitter? How is that? You got I don't understand. I don't understand it. He's retweeting an article that says the straight white middle-class man needs to be dethroned. It's just a bunch of nonsense. Just a bunch of nonsense. Now, there's a couple of articles about this written by, let's just say it, okay? It's these Goldstein types, who write these anti-male, anti-white male propaganda. The problem is that it's anti-white male now, but then it's anti-male altogether. But we start with the white male, then it's the male. Is male, there's always an issue. That's what I feel like in the media today. I don't think that I'm alone in feeling this way. I've never done anything, I've never hurt anybody, really, to be honest with you, except maybe with words. I don't know. But I'm made to feel like I am some sort of sexual predator, like I'm some sort of bad person because, 0.1% of the male population does something wrong. Figuratively, that we all know that, just the fact that it's like, women, you got to be careful, this might happen. When in fact, men are the primary victims of murder and robberies and all kinds of violence. So it doesn't really compute, but whatever. You know what I think it is? It's in the end the value. We value the lives of women more than men. And this has always kind of been this way, especially like that's why we send men to war. But now it's becoming more profound, and it's okay to talk about it. It's okay. We're open about these feelings, and I find it a little bit disturbing. I'm going to throw in another piece before letting you. And I want to, I'm just trying to start discussion here. I want to hear what you guys think. Please leave comments, and we can kind of talk about this because it is alarming, and I don't know what's going to be the next step. But here's another image that I found. This is from a university in North Carolina, I think it is, where it says, it's an ad. Okay, it says Jake was drunk, right? Josie was drunk. Jake and Josie hooked up. Josie could not consent. The next day, Jake was charged with rape. A woman who is intoxicated cannot give her legal consent for sex, so proceeding under these circumstances is a crime. It only takes a single day to ruin your life. Note here that Jake, the guy in it, whatever, he has this weird, really creepy look on his face, real creeper vibe. I don't know why. They're having a freaking margarita. It's not like they're slamming, shots, but whatever. You want to make it look like he's the perpetrator. I get it that these circumstances happen, right? Here's my issue with this. How much sense does that make? Two people are drunk, it's automatically the man's fault. Take note that this is the law in the United States currently. Technically speaking, if you have a drink with somebody, you meet somebody at a bar, you have a drink, they have a drink, you end up having sex. She wakes up the next morning and decides that she didn't consent. If they prove that sex happened, right? Sex happened and alcohol was involved, it's an open and shut case. That's what the legislation means. That the threshold for proof is lowered. All you have to prove is that sex happened. You don't have to prove whether it was consensual or not, as long as you can prove that a drop of alcohol was involved. And this legislation is throwing dudes in jail. Okay, I know this seems far-fetched, but I had a friend of mine who worked in Miami, right? He was a cop who worked in Miami. They said that after weekends, they had dozens and dozens of reports of these rape cases that in reality were just women would black out, right? They would wake up the next morning in some dude's bed and not remember, like completely not remember what happened, right? And so they'd go and they press fucking charges, right? They actually had to change things up. So they don't, in some of these places, they don't even operate in the same way because it would be too many. You'd be throwing guys in jail constantly, right? A lot of these are then disproven because then a friend of hers can come up and be like, actually, she was just blackout. She wasn't that drunk, yada, yada. But this legislation, it makes it strange. Like, I'm not trying to take away from if you're raped, if you're a victim, that's not good. It shouldn't happen. But it's being used in a very sinister way. More people than you might think when drinking alcohol tend to black out. Mind you, that blackout doesn't mean that you're way too drunk. It just means that the next day you don't remember anything. That means you were blackout drunk the night before. You can blackout drink in 2 or 3 drinks, right? The next day you don't remember anything. You were blackout drunk. You just don't remember. But you were fine. You could have driven cars, right? That's the other thing with this whole thing. It takes away any responsibility for your actions. Jody had 1 drink. She can't consent to anything to happen. He was automatically the perpetrator. So never mind the fact that he was drunk too. But let's just take, if she gets a DUI, is she not responsible for the DUI? I mean, you get what I'm going with this, but it makes it look like women are children. And you see this a lot in some subreddits, like the red pill and stuff. And I don't agree with that kind of stuff. I don't think we should treat women like children. Women are not children, okay? Women will act like children, and anybody will act like a child if you allow them to, if you treat them like a child. If you allow this behavior to continue, I'll start acting like a baby. You start treating me, you reward me for a certain behavior, I'm going to start having that behavior. So let's not act like that. A lot of guys get together and talk about, women are children. I'm like, no, they're not. They're adults. They can do anything a man can, well, almost anything a man can do most of the time, whatever. But you have to set the bar high. That is, I think, what's holding back a lot of women, is that we're setting the bar too low for things. And when you set the bar low, there's not that competitive edge. You're not pushing someone to reach higher. And this, to me, doesn't even make sense, this law. Doesn't make sense to me. It absolutely does not make sense. I can't make sense of it. I don't know how this could have slipped through the cracks. How can we let this go on and say, hey, if you're have a drink and you drive, you get a DUI and you're responsible for that behavior. But somehow, if you turn around and have sex with some stranger or, whatever, you're suddenly no longer responsible. You cannot give consent even if one drink of alcohol has been consumed. And if you think that this law isn't being implemented, if you think that this isn't putting people in jail, you're wrong. Do you know that over 90% of rape cases in the United States involve alcohol? I'll let that sink in. This myth, this idea of the stranger in the bushes, this is not the case. This is not the case. So why is more education not going in to expressing the fact that drinking is the number one, by far the number one thing that contributes to this stuff, any type of assault, sexual assault, or anything like this that happen. So why aren't we, like you really want to prevent, you want to demonize people. You really want to prevent this kind of thing in college campuses. You can't drink. Say you can't drink on a college campus anywhere. Don't allow that kind of stuff. Cut down on that. I don't know how you would, but, I'm just saying, listen, I went to college. I went to many different universities, and I can tell you, guys get crazy. Women get crazy. Capito, I am telling you. And it tends to be a feeling from what I experience, okay, that women feel a little bit like they can get away with a little bit more. I'm telling you, I'm not trying to be sexist. I'm saying it because at the end of the day, even police officers, they've done studies about this. People don't feel as intimidated by women. They tend to not take them as seriously, so, and even feminists probably don't like this kind of stuff if you're a true feminist. So let's hold everyone accountable. Let's take everybody seriously. And how can you if you have legislation that is discriminating against men? You have this legislation that's in place. There's tons of this kind of legislation, like affirmative action, all kind of stuff, okay? Now, California talking about they're going to pass that law that's going to force companies to have at least one woman in the boardroom. I'm like, what's the matter? It's a private company. Who cares what they do? Or they're going to force them. But then you have somebody that you're forcing somebody into a boardroom that may be unqualified. Don't get me started. Don't get me started. And I'm sure somebody out there's going to watch this video and is going to go on a rant like, but all the CEOs are men. And I'm like, listen, new studies have come out, find that women in their 20s in metropolitan cities make 8% more than their male counterparts, mainly because they're better educated, okay? This is now. When you're looking at CEOs, these people went to school in the 50s and 60s. The average age for a CEO was like 66 years old. So don't start with that. These are different times. The legislation and the activities that have changed and shaped our world within the past 20 years, they're being felt now in the younger generations. This is really what comes down, is I think about the future. I'm not trying to say that I'm oppressed, okay? So don't get that wrong. My life is fine, but I see this trend, and it worries me. And I think to myself, where is it going to go in 10 years, 20 years, when we're allowed to say something? It's like we got all this political correctness, but then you can get away with saying it as long as you say it as a specific group that is perceived to be the oppressor, which is not. You can say it about that group. Let's not. Let's hold everybody to the same responsibilities as everybody else. How is that difficult? What do you think about this? I mean, I would love to hear opinions, and we can discuss this further. Are you as frustrated? Am I just seeing things? I don't feel that way. I feel like every time I open my eyes, I see this discrimination. I see people bad-mouthing dudes and vilifying, the male freaking species over here. And it's very frustrating because I don't feel like, and then hashtag menaretrash. I see it all the time. All the time I see this stuff. menaretrash, mansplaining, all this stuff. And it's just okay. We just got to put up with it. And it doesn't make any sense to me. It's very frustrating. Thank you guys for tuning in, listening to that little rant. I just wanted to, I felt like I had to say something. From now on, every couple of weeks, I'm going to take on all these. There's tons of articles and just weird shit that's sexist. And I'm going to share it on this channel. Get you guys' opinion. Let me know what you think. Thank you guys for tuning in. Vince out of here.